those videos now. Ms. Natasha Ria Elskari, if you could
Yes,
ask
absolutely. The first question is there an independent organization that is available for officers to report other officers that display racist behavior while on and off the job? And that question has been asked a couple of different ways and times, but
Thank you so very much for that question. Meryl Benikin was supposed to be on with the Office of Community Complaints, but I will allow Bishop Mark Talbert, Commissioner Talbert, to go right ahead, sir.
Good evening, Councilwoman Robinson. As far as I know, there is not an independent group. Meryl Benikin does handle our complaints department. And I would think that that would be something that the mayor and the city council could formulate, would be an independent council. Of course, it would have to go through all of the scrutiny and the political things that it goes through. But no, there isn't, to answer the question shortly.
And Bishop Colbert, I'm sorry, this is Deputy Chief Carl Oakman from Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Just to let you know, I'm on the line.
Oh, good. That's Deputy Chief Oakman. Good.
Thank you so much. So we will try to get you up as well. Thank you for joining. Would you like, okay, and if we could potentially, I apologize. If Natasha, if you could read the next question.
yes, the next question is, can we talk about the blue line flags KCPD officers have been wearing at the protests? Blue Lives Matter stemmed as a response to Black Lives Matter. Wearing that at all, but especially to a protest, is not neutral at best and escalating at worst. Also, it's a political statement and people aren't officials, typically not supposed to wear political clothing, etc. in uniform.
Okay, I would ask our moderator if you could reframe the question and just make sure that we're asking questions. Can you reframe what the question is?
So they're basically saying that there are officers wearing the blue line flags during the protest. That line symbolizes Blue Lives Matter, which was a response, for those who may not know, saying and diminishing, some believe, Black Lives Matter. How is a police officer able to show themselves in their political stance while working? Is that legal, is the question that people have.
Deputy Chief, would you please answer that question? Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, that's an apolitical symbol. It's not necessarily political. What that flag represents is the thin blue line between, it's kind of a symbolism between that the police is the stance between crime and disorder and the community. That was something that was on some flags, but that symbol has been around for a while, and it's to protect citizens. It's a you know, there's nothing political about that symbol.
May I speak? Yes.
We have about 23 questions, and so we're just doing one question per, one response per question.
So there needs to be a response for the response.
If we have time for that, we have again 23 questions. Natasha, thank you so much. What's the next question?
Absolutely, and I think I would encourage people to, they can respond to it in the chat as well. Everyone has access to that and can read that. I would encourage people to use that, and please mute your microphone. That way we don't hear you typing. So there are several questions about the behavior of police officers and the de-escalation of violence that is not occurring during the protests. They want to know, will there be any accountability on the actions of KCPD to use the media to portray an inaccurate portrait of what is happening during the protests?
If you'll allow me to speak to that, I've had 2 conversations with Chief Rick Smith already about some Twitter feeds that I've seen, and we are following up on things that seem to be instigated by the police, because it is our job to show refrain, and they let some of the taunting get to them. And as I heard somebody say earlier, they're professionals. And so we are addressing that with the chief, and then we will move into further discourse to see what can be done.
Thank you. The next question is, what new changes will the KCPD make pertaining to officers killing residents in our community? Will they be charged, convicted, or continue to walk the streets and go to work?
Bishop Tauber, would you like to address that question?
I think Deputy Chief is a little closer to that than I am. I'd kind of like to hear his response to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, can you reframe the question, because I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Yes. What new changes? So this particular citizen is looking for changes to be made within KCPD pertaining to officers killing residents in our community. Will they be charged, convicted, or continue to walk the streets and go to work? So the question is, are there going to be new policies implemented, and who will be watching that to see the officers that were mentioned earlier who have multiple killings in community? How will they be addressed moving forward?
Okay. Yeah, regarding, I mean, this is more of a hypothetical, so I can't tell you about a specific, but part of that on the KCPD part is that we are looking at ways to, if there is a situation where we feel that the shooting was not done, it wasn't justified, not only is there do we have, what we have available to us is to terminate the officer. As far as the legal process, that's not really up to the PD, that's up to the prosecutors. Something that we have done is the MOU that we did a couple years ago where, and this doesn't just apply to shootings, but anything that we feel is a civil rights violation or could be seen as one, we send that case file to the FBI, the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office, and the U.S. Attorney's Office to review. Even if it's a situation that doesn't rise to that level, if we think there's the potential, then we send that and let the FBI, the prosecutor, and the U.S. Attorney's Office review that. That's one of the new things that we put in that's been in place the last couple years. We're still looking at ways to, and this is part of some of the community forums that we'll start doing, as well as with OCC, is just looking at other ways to ensure that there's accountability.
Okay, thank you. I want to also encourage people and remind people that there is a chat and where you can type and communicate. So if there's a follow-up to a question, please do so. What is the protocol for police officers that receive multiple complaints?
Well, receiving a complaint and getting a suspected complaint is two different things. If there's officers who have received multiple complaints that have been substantiated, it's kind of a broad question because the complaint can be totally different from, they could have had two complaints, but they could have been totally different from each other. When we see officers consistently having the same complaints, we go through a progressive discipline process. Initially, depending on what it is, I'll give you an example. If there's an issue where an officer they're justified in using force, but they apply the tactic incorrectly, then we evaluate it, and that first initial time may be a training issue. Say it happens again, well, this is the second time it happened, so we've trained you, so then we start looking at severe discipline like suspension days, that's days off with pay, up until termination, depending on what the process is. But I will tell you something that we do, and I'll tell you the process. I'm over Patrol Bureau. I'm over all 6 patrol divisions, traffic, and our tactical response units. And what we do is, as a use of force, every officer in the normal course of duty, if they use force, they have to complete a form that's reviewed by the sergeant. When the sergeant signs off on it, it's reviewed by the captain, and then the major, and then it comes to my office. And then we review it. If we see issues, we'll send it back down for clarification. And if that's not clarified, then we'll start the disciplinary process on that officer for if we feel that the force was not within the resistance. And I have to tell you, a lot of issues with use of force, a lot of times doesn't lead to injury, but they may use the tactic wrong, and oftentimes we'll discipline them for that.
Thank you. Can a representative from the police department provide some transparency around how they plan to distribute $1.4 million federal grant from Operation Relentless Pursuit? The grant allows for it to be used for technology, so are there plans to use it for the body cams?
Yes, regarding that grant has specific uses, and body cams is not one of them. But there is some technology that we're looking at using that will allow officers to have more resources, and not just on enforcement, but it'll be able to add community type resources that they can get to at the click of a button. But as far as federal grants, they are very specific, and they are audited each year, and the money has to go to what, even though it's a broad concept on the announcement, we get the detailed instructions on what the money can be used on, and body cams cannot be used on that grant.
Point of clarification, is there a place where the members of the city can find out what technology will be used?
Can you repeat that question?
Is there, you said that it can't be used for body cams, but can the attendee find out what it can be used for, if not for body cams?
Yeah, there are normally stipulations that comes with each grant, and I'm not sure if those notes that we get each month are public, but that is something that I will check into to see if we can pass those notes on to the public.